Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. It's a live edition. Ohio State hired an offensive coordinator. So Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis are going to talk about it. Bill Landis, what do you think of this hire? Arthur Smith, who was calling plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers like 17 days ago, is now going to be calling plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2026.
Yeah, a couple of things. Like, not at all surprised that it's an NFL guy coming to Ohio State to do this. It was just sort of like, which of these play callers who's kind of like flapping in the wind is going to be the odd man out, right? As teams kind of shuffle their coaching staffs. And Arthur Smith's name is one that was coming up for a couple of NFL coordinator jobs, and those didn't land for him. Perhaps if he had held out longer, maybe something would have shaken out for him. But instead, he's going to come to Ohio State. I will say, like, in terms of Arthur Smith's like lean and expertise, it's not the way that I thought Ryan Day was going to go. But now that we do know that it's Arthur Smith, like there are a couple different ways that it certainly makes sense that we can get into. So I don't know, like, good, bad, like I don't know, which I guess is like what people don't want to hear. But like the fact that Ohio State's coordinators are two former NFL head coaches is like kind of crazy.
It is. I think that's the important thing. Like how? So you're a ball knower. I'm a vibes knower. I don't care about lean, about expertise. Like the NFL determined this guy was good enough to be an NFL play caller, and he got a head coaching job based off being a play caller. And what I care about is the resume there, is the experience there, and is Ryan Day going to fully trust this guy? That's what I care about the most. Is Ryan Day going to fully trust this guy to run the Ryan Day Ohio State offense and offer some tweaks, offer some fresh ideas, right? And I think the answer to that is yes, 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 and yes. And this is like the Matt Patricia hire, which I think has to color all of our opinions on this, because a year ago he made a similar hire and there were people who were like, I don't know about this. Except there's none of these.
Were there?
I can't remember who it was. Somebody we don't have to care about their opinions. But that had some obvious downsides with Matt Patricia that like aren't here with Arthur Smith, right? That, I mean, yeah, he did get, here's the thing. That's like, oh, like he got fired as NFL head coach. If he didn't get fired as NFL head coach, he wouldn't be in this job. Right. You're not getting Sean McVay to come take this job. So if you're looking to the NFL, you're automatically going to have some things that the guy did wrong, which is why he might consider taking a college OC job. But then within that, this guy has never been fired as an OC.
Oh, that's true. He's only been OC twice, but yeah.
He was an offensive coordinator. He was so good at it, he got a head coaching job. He got fired from that, and he immediately got an offensive coordinator job, and then his boss quit. And that's why he's on the market, right? He's not on the market because they're like, oh my God, this freaking guy, he's lost it completely. It's like Mike Tomlin was like, I'm good. And Arthur Smith was like, what? I still need a job. And he was getting interviews. So honestly, I can see a little bit. If you're, I'm not telling Ohio State fans how to think. I don't know what you want. What do you want?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
if you don't want this, what do you want? Give me a name. If you're in the chat and you don't like this, give me the name that you want instead.
Yeah, I think like something. Yeah, I don't know, because you wanted experience, right? Like I think there are some younger NFL types that could have been exciting, but would have brought like zero play calling experience and wouldn't, I think, be viewed sort of as like the adult in the room that I think everybody was sort of on board with the idea that of Ohio State needing to run the offense because everyone else on the staff is like 30 years old. And it's no shade toward those guys. Are just like still pretty young in their coaching careers. So you needed somebody, and Arthur Smith is 43, who has like that cachet, who can lead a room, who's organized, who knows how to call plays, who understands the machinations of it on a game day, doesn't have to have his hand held. And then like you figure out the scheme stuff afterward, I think, right? Like It's not like, if they brought in a guy whose scheme fit was like totally out of left field, then like we can have that conversation. I think have some concern. But if you just want expertise, which I think is probably the biggest box that Ryan Day was looking to check here, He did get that in Arthur Smith for sure.
Yes. So like there are people like if you wanted to hire somebody who's never been a play caller before at any level, you're just dying to make the same mistake again. If there are people, I'm not telling you how to, if you think that the choice here was hire a guy to be the offensive play caller who's never called plays before, I'm not telling you how to feel. You're effing crazy. You're freaking crazy. Because Ohio State had to do that in a very specific situation this year, and it did work, but they did it because the guy was the best position coach in America. And so take all those people out of the mix. So you have to get somebody who's done it before. So then now, now what are you looking for? Well, guess if you're looking for somebody who's done it before, why aren't they doing it now? You can hire somebody who's doing it at a lower level successfully on the way up. They're doing it at a G5 school. They're doing it at a power conference school, but that you can steal them away. Once upon a time, Clemson stole ECU's offensive coordinator, right? And they wound up firing that guy. But that's not, that's what Ryan Day, that's not what Ryan Day was looking for. Ryan Day wanted NFL stuff. So if it's an NFL guy, it's got to be somebody who has an iffy part of his resume. Otherwise, he wouldn't be available. So I can tell you, so like that, from that standpoint, here's the other thing. This is not to guarantee it's going to work. This guy's overqualified. He's overqualified for this job. He was an NFL play
caller. Both of their coordinators are overqualified for the job.
But Matt Patricia had been through the I'm not sure what's up with you cycle. There were not NFL teams beating down the door to hire Matt Patricia. Arthur Smith interviewed with the Titans to be their offensive coordinator like 4 days ago. Mm-hmm. He was in the interview cycle still, and I can tell you the story I was working on that will never see the light of day. But what category I had him in for the story I was working on, he was in the midst of this stuff still. He had not been rejected by the NFL. I felt like Matt Patricia had been rejected by the NFL. Because not only after being fired as the head coach of the Lions, then he was back with the Patriots and he was kind of doing weird stuff with the Eagles. And then he was like off for a year, right? He kind of felt like the NFL wasn't particularly interested in Matt Patricia anymore. And that to me added pause to that. Arthur Smith, we're just like making comparisons here because as you said, they're now two coordinators who are former NFL head coaches. Arthur Smith had not been through the rejection cycle. He was employed 2 weeks ago. He had a job and he did not get fired from that job. So to me, this is like, I kind of can't believe that he took it.
Yeah, I am surprised that Ryan Day landed someone like with this resume at this point. I think if Ryan Day was going to get a guy with Arthur Smith's resume, I figured it would have been until like everything in the NFL coaching cycle had shaken out. Yes. Like post Super Bowl, everyone's got their staff locked in for 2026 because there's all these parts, but there's still a handful of teams that are looking for offensive coordinators in the NFL, and I think Smith would have at the very least gotten interviews for those. We'll ask. It makes me wonder like what the offer was too, like how aggressive was Ohio State with the money here to get him to like not wait for that to happen. So at least three.
You think it's three?
I would say at least three. Yeah, I think. Yep. He and Patricia will both be 3 if I had to guess, which is by far the most that Ohio State has paid for a coordinator tandem.
Yeah. So let me give you the information that I threw out the window. And this is the story. This is how good I am at my job. I was just pounding away on this story. I was researching possible candidates for the OC job. You had done a great job laying people out on January 5th. 35 possible people.
I'm so mad he wasn't on the list because I didn't think Tomlin was going to step down.
It's not your like if you had done the list 4 days later, you would have done it, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing. Here's what I did, and this is. I just want to tell people, like this is how good I think this hire is, and there's a difference. Here's the thing. How do I say this? This is not to defend anything, but I think there is a difference between like how good is the hire and how well does it work out. I think this is indisputably a good hire. I don't know if it's going to work. I think the Patricia hire was like slightly eyebrow raising and it worked out great. But we're not here to relitigate Matt Patricia. Like sitting here today, this guy was coaching Aaron Rodgers 11 hours ago, and now he's going to coach Julian Sand. And I can't say that about the receiver position because Jeremiah Smith would have been the Steelers' best receiver this year by a mile. If Arthur Smith had Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate this year, Mike Tomlin wouldn't be retiring. Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith would be at a steakhouse right now talking about how they can't believe they're in the NFC Championship game. Like, this is not – so the Steelers – but here's the thing. Let me tell you what the deal is. I went through people who had called plays in the NFL in the last 3 years, the 23, 24, and 25 seasons. I went through all of them. Head coaches and offensive coordinators who were the play callers. I then checked all of them who are not calling plays right now, who do not currently have a play calling job. There are 24 of them.
Oh.
Of those 24, 15 are actually unemployed. 15 people currently without jobs who have called plays in the NFL in the last 3 years. There are currently 13 potential play calling jobs available in the NFL. There are 4 head coaching jobs and 9 open OC spots. Now, there might be a head coach hired who's a play caller, so that takes up 2 of the spots, right? But in doing that math, because I've been on shows, I've been on here, Doug, who do you think the OC is going to be? Whoever's left at the end of the NFL hiring cycle was my answer. NFL play caller with experience who doesn't get an NFL job. So I was trying to figure out, is that going to happen? What's the math on that? So when I did that math, there's only 13 jobs for play callers at the most still open, and there's 15 guys who have done it recently. I was like, aha, that's good math for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Right there. And then the other ones are like, could you get a guy who is a passing game coordinator in the NFL, who's under an OC and under an offensive head coach, who has a job but is not close to calling plays? Would he leave that job to come to Ohio State? I was going to go through those people. And I had my head down banging this story out. And I looked up and people had been reporting Arthur Smith to the Buckeyes for half an hour. And you had already written the story. And I was just bang, 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 bang. So this is coming from that place. This doesn't make me an expert. This does not make me an NFL general manager. But I will just tell you, like, I was writing this story. And in writing this story, I had a top group of people, 24 people who had called plays in the NFL in the last 3 years who weren't calling plays right now, 15 of them unemployed. I was going to list all 24 of those people. And I was going to say, I bet the Ohio State hire comes from this group of 24. I had 5 people in the top group, and the top group I labeled this: recent play callers likely to get good NFL jobs and be out of Ohio State's reach. So they technically fit the category, and they're all like unemployed right now. I had 5 people. This to me is the top group. Like, man, be great, but like, they're just going to stay in the NFL.
Can I
5
guess?
people. Guess.
Okay, so Arthur Smith.
Well, that kind of gives it away because I was going to build up to and Arthur Smith, but yes.
Yeah. Matt Nagy.
No, Matt Nagy to me is in the next group because I thought he was more gettable because he is interviewing for jobs, but he doesn't seem quite as hot to me because he's kind of he got let go by the Chiefs. But anyway, like, I was basically going to come to the conclusion that I think Ohio State's going to hire Matt Nagy. Anyway, continue. So Matt Nagy was not my top group.
Greg Roman.
No, Greg Roman was in the second group under he's gettable. He's unemployed and gettable, but also he's a Harbaugh guy. But is he a spurned Harbaugh guy? Because he's worked for both Harbaughs, but he worked for Jim at Stanford and with the 49ers and just got fired by Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. And so you don't know how many paragraphs I was going to waste on. Would Ryan Day hire a spurned former Jim Harbaugh assistant? So no. But like, to me, this group is better than Matt Nagy and Greg Roman.
Give me the group because I'm just going to be here guessing all night.
Joe Brady, who like doesn't currently have a job because they fired Sean McDermott in Buffalo and like the new head coach, but he's interviewing for the head coaching job. He's going to get a job somewhere. Right. Yes. But like he currently kind of is a free agent. Cliff Kingsbury. Oh, yeah. Brian Daboll, who's interviewing for the Raiders and Bills head coaching jobs and also OC jobs, but like somehow if he fell through the cracks. And Todd Monken, who has interviewed twice for the Browns job and is probably going to follow John Harbaugh to the Giants to be the play caller if he doesn't get a head coaching job. But like, that's Todd Monken, Brian Daboll, Cliff Kingsbury, and Joe Brady. And I had Arthur Smith in that group. I made Arthur Smith the 5th person in that group. Of course you'd take him at Ohio State, but I don't think there's any way they're going to get him. That's how qualified I think Arthur Smith is for this job. And then I was going to run through Matt Nagy and Mike Kafka and Brian Callahan and Greg Roman and all these other guys, right? Mm-hmm. But I thought Arthur Smith was as qualified and on a par with Brian Daboll, Todd Monken, Cliff Kingsbury, and Joe Brady. So that's where I am. That's where I am on this hire. That is an awesome group for Ohio State. He'd be 5th out of 5 in that group, but he's in the top group, and they got him.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly put him in the tier like above like the Nagy, the Roman, those kind of guys. And I would just like of the guys you mentioned in that tier, I think the only one that I had on my initial list was Monken. And he probably like Monken was probably like my 1A guy for Ohio State if they could somehow swing it. But I also didn't really think that was going to happen, especially after John Harbaugh got the New York Giants job. So, but I think those tiers are right. Like at least I agree with you for whatever it's worth. So to get a guy from that group, I do think means something, because then like for me, it'd be almost like get a guy from that group, or then like take a swing on somebody young, take a swing on the passing game coordinator who hasn't done it yet. Like Greg Roman wouldn't do a whole lot for me, frankly. Like a guy like that necessarily. So,
but I would get it. But wouldn't you get it? I don't think Ryan Day is going to take a swing.
Yeah.
He's going to take a swing headspace.
He's not. No,
going through this with Brian Hartline. And again, we don't want to make it sound like Brian Hartline. But it's just, it was a guy who had never done it. And everybody reacts in all of these hirings in every walk of life by doing the opposite of what just didn't work. So he was definitely going to get somebody experienced. And if Arthur Smith leaves in a year to go be an NFL OC or go be a college head coach or go be an NFL head coach, then maybe he will go with somebody younger. But he needed to, he had been through this. He can go back. He doesn't have to turn off his brain, but maybe Ryan Day, what he can do is a lot of the things that you've been saying smartly, they need to refresh, they need to rethink, but he doesn't have to deal with the basics. Arthur Smith has the basics down, and Arthur Smith is going to bring some of his own ideas too. And it's going to allow Ryan Day to be all the things that we want Ryan Day to be, that we saw him be in 2024, and that he couldn't be the same way in 2025.
Yeah.
So
Arthur Smith, positioning himself in college football to be the guy who succeeds Bill Belichick at his alma mater, which is UNC.
Yeah. So I don't know if everyone in here, so there's somebody who tied to the Natty, chooses to be in the group and come on this YouTube show, and like a fan of the middest, most currently irrelevant team in college football. Like, if you're an Alabama fan, you are so desperate for human interaction because your team sucks so hard that you're in an Ohio State chat. And I might block them here soon. And by the way, someone saying, "Wow, Doug, way to make it seem like Brian Hartline is ugh. Can't wait to post this on the message boards about this." Platypus 9068 says this. Post it. What the hell is wrong with people? He was not a good offensive coordinator.
He
what, are
wasn't.
you going to call Brian Hartline's mom because I said he wasn't good at calling plays because he never did it before? Why? What the hell is wrong with people? So come in here and let's talk about Ohio State hiring an offensive coordinator. And if you're an Alabama fan, get bent. Your team freaking sucks. And if you're going to go tell Brian Hartline on me, I'll call him. I'll text him. Brian, I didn't think you did a great job. I don't think Brian Hartline would dispute that. Arthur Smith is more qualified. What is wrong with people? It's a good hire.
Did you not think it? Hire? No, I think it is. I just think it's. I think from a schematic standpoint, it's interesting. Because it's not what I thought he would do.
Take us down the schematic road, because I think we can agree experience, letting Ryan Day do his thing, just someone who's done it is the most important thing. But certainly when margins matter more, when the talent is flattened out, scheme matters even more. We saw Indiana had great scheme on both sides of the ball this year, and certainly the idea that that Ohio State can elevate offensively. We saw how much of an impact Matt Patricia and what he wanted to do defensively and how that was different than Jim Knowles, and it paid dividends immediately. It destroyed Arch Manning's Heisman campaign. So of course the scheme matters. Talk to the ball knowers.
So this mostly stems from the fact that like Chip Kelly, like a reunion with Chip Kelly just like never seemed to be in the cards, and Ryan Day was like sort of dismissive of the notion when he was asked about it at a press conference in like November or something like that. And then Chip ends up at Northwestern, right? And my read on that was, well, when Ryan Day goes and brings in the next offensive coordinator, it's going to be somebody with more of like a passing game lean, more of a passing game background. And that's not really Arthur Smith. Like, of course, like he calls a balanced offense. He has a passing game. He's like a Matt LaFleur kind of guy. He worked under LaFleur in Tennessee. But his bend is like more like run game. He's a former offensive lineman. Positionally, he's coached offensive linemen and tight ends. His offenses have had like super high rushing rates. Now, part of that is because he coached Derrick Henry when he was in Tennessee. But even when he was in Atlanta, they had a high rushing rate, like when they didn't have Derrick Henry. So I just wasn't like on alert necessarily for like Ryan Day to go get a like quote unquote like run game guy. And that is that I don't mean to say that to say like that Arthur Smith only has one area where he's strong. I actually don't think that's the case, but I thought maybe the offense was going to go in a slightly different direction. And this is, I think, very much a bit of a double down on the heavier personnel. We're going to use more tight ends. We want to be a balanced team, but to be a balanced team, we have to be a better rushing team. And like I think Arthur Smith will make Ohio State a better rushing team. So like, which I love, frankly, like personal preference. I'm like kind of fired up to watch to see what the offense looks like, as I was when they hired Chip. But it's just a little counter to what I assumed about the direction when Ryan Day like kind of passed on the idea of Chip Kelly coming back here.
So people may or may not know Arthur Smith is of the FedEx lineage.
He is.
His late father founded FedEx, and I just Googled this. FedEx currently has a current market capitalization, I don't know what that means, of $71 to $72 billion. So also, I don't know if this is part of it, but Arthur Smith can buy Ohio State a roster. And if Ohio State's looking for their whale, they just hire an offensive coordinator and they can call him Ahab. Like, what is up with this, right? What happens when you hire an offensive coordinator who hasn't worked in college football? So we don't know what I don't know. Hey, everybody. Hey, fam. We could really use a left tackle. You got some extra cash floating around that we could get to I mean, again, like every Ohio State player is just doing FedEx commercials now and getting paid $1.5 million to hold up a cardboard envelope. I don't really think that's what's going to happen. But
chestnut checkers. I don't think so.
Have we ever seen a team hire a coach whose family is filled with billionaires before in the NIL era? I don't know. I'm not aware of it. So
no. I don't think so. So I didn't know that. I saw people like talking about that, like right as the news broke of his hire, and like I got a little nervous because I didn't know. Like, does that mean that like the only reason Arthur Smith became a coach because like his dad owned the Tennessee Titans? But that wasn't the case.
Oh, right.
They are Tennessee, but they are Tennessee-based billionaires, but they did not own the Titans.
Yeah. So, so this is, and again, for people asking this question, right? Can we explain? Ohio State is not getting rid of a coach to hire Arthur Smith. This is an addition to what they already have, and just explain coaching rules and limitations because they have evolved over the last year or two, and this can be confusing to fans for sure.
Yeah. So there's no limit on how many coaches you can have on your staff. The only limit is on the number of coaches who can be designated to go on the road and recruit. And that limit is 10 assistants. So Ohio State has all of those slots filled at the moment. And whoever this offensive coordinator was going to be, and it is now Arthur Smith, was kind of going to be brought in with out much recruiting, I think, involved with the job. Now they can recruit on campus, they can make phone calls, all that stuff. They just can't go to high schools. Like we've seen this week, Matt Patricia's out at high school with Ryan Day talking to kids. I think actually, even ideally, Ohio State might want to get to the place where it has a coordinator at the top on both sides of the ball and then 5 recruiting assistants underneath each guy. At the moment, that's not what they have because they only have 4 on defense with Matt Patricia. So Patricia can still go and recruit. He's one of the 10. Arthur Smith, unless something changes and I'm not expecting it, will not be an on-the-road recruiter and will not have a positional designation. If he did, it'd be O-line or tight end, but he's just going to be head coach of the offense, scheming up the game plan and calling the plays and kind of having his hand in all the different position groups, which is like honestly like kind of what Chip did when he was here. Like I know Chip was like the quarterback's coach, but I don't think he was like in there running the room every single day. I think Billy Fessler had a pretty big hand in that, which is why Billy Fessler got the quarterback coaching job prior to this past season. So yeah, this is a little bit of a different spot for Ohio State. And I've been meaning to look across college football to see how many teams like have sort of like a bonus coordinator situation where the guy isn't one of the 10 who go out and recruit. And I didn't look through all the P4, but I looked through like half of it and couldn't find one. So I do think this is perhaps maybe unique to Ohio State this year, but I wonder if other teams might go this direction with everything that's asked of head coaches these days. If you want like a CEO as your head coach and then the 2 guys underneath him as coordinator who don't have to do anything other than run their side of the ball and scheme up ball plays and don't worry about recruiting.
And then I do think like it creates kind of some, especially if you're getting NFL guys, it creates kind of like gravitas, right? Of like you have these other maybe experienced college guys, doesn't have to be younger guys, but like energetic guys who are out on the road and building relationships. And it's like, come to campus. And then not only are we going to have you go in and hang out with the head coach, we're going to have you go hang out with the coordinator who also like, he doesn't leave. He's like Jabba the Hutt. Like where they're in, right? You come to them. They can't come to you. And it's like you're a kid and you are a quarterback, you are an offensive, you're an offensive player, and it's like, oh, go talk to Arthur Smith. He's been an OC at 2 different places. He was an NFL head coach. Let's go talk ball. Right. So like I do. And here's the thing.
Sorry to cut you off. Diana Rossini covers the NFL, said that Smith was talking with the Eagles and the Titans and decided to take the Ohio State job.
So like here's the thing. And I'm only yelling at like a couple people because like don't come in and be a jackhole on a Saturday night. Honestly, like we're so grateful for the people who are here for this live show. If you are in this live show to be a jackhole, get a freaking life. It's Saturday night. If you're here because you love Ohio State football and you want to hang out and talk ball, we couldn't be happier to have you. If you're here to be a jackhole, my God, what a pathetic existence you have. So I just think this is the kind of thing that only programs like Ohio State can do, like a small handful. And this is the kind of thing when you are, 14 out of 18 programs in the Big Ten. Like we know that there's 68 teams in the Power 4, but like there's really probably 12, 15 who have any chance to swim in these waters where it's like, oh, what did you do? Oh yeah, no, you're hot, young, rising, great position coach, OC, took a head coaching job. What'd you do? We outbid the Eagles and the Titans for our new OC. and so like, did you have to get rid of somebody? It's like, no, we just have 11 coaches now. So like, this is they're just throwing money around. So this is an incredible investment that very few schools are able to do. And so is it nothing's for sure, but the strategy behind it and the resume of their person they're bringing in, it's unlike anything in college football right now. And the only thing that it mirrors is Bama. It's Bama and Saban, which we've been talking about a lot, which is you become this place. Brian Daboll, right? Like flamed out, did this, comes to Alabama, and now restarts his career, right? And now he's in this cycle. So like this is the other thing too. And I haven't been following it. I don't care, but like I know there's consternation about, oh, what if Ohio State loses Matt Patricia? And like people are like, you see headlines everywhere, and I think people like throwing headlines out there. That's the cost of this.
Sure.
You can't hire guys from the NFL who have long resumes and then be like, oh, I hope we can keep them for 10 years. That's not what we're in now. So if you don't like that cycle and you'd rather be hiring college guys and bringing guys up, Tom Herman was the offensive coordinator at Iowa State when Urban Meyer hired him, right? Jeff, if that's what you want to do, that's a very reasonable opinion. That is not currently how they caught their 2 coordinators. So then that's the cost. You don't know how long they're going to stay. But if you create this situation like Saban did, you become a place where other guys like this want to come here.
Yeah.
And then that's what it is. And it's the Ryan Day offense and it's the Ryan Day way of doing things. And you get qualified people. The hires that I don't like is when I feel they're not qualified. They're getting hired at Ohio State and they wouldn't be hired somewhere else. This person wouldn't be hired at Colorado State, much less Ohio State, except they're friends with somebody, they're related to somebody, they're down the hall. So this is completely not that, obviously. This person is overqualified for this job, but the idea that he might be a short timer or that Matt Patricia might be a short timer, does that make you nervous at all? Do you think it should make Ohio State fans nervous?
It might have made me nervous prior to this offseason. But I think everything in college football anymore is a one-year proposition with the way that rosters change over, with the way the players can move. Now, Ohio State, I think because of its status, will be able to weather a lot of that reality. But I still think it's probably the reality of the sport. It's not to say Ohio State's going to be 10-2 one year and then 4-8 the next. But everything just has to line up for that 1 year to go win the national title. And Ohio State's going to have 2 former NFL head coaches as its coordinators, with the Heisman Trophy finalist and the best receiver in college football coming back. It's a pretty good setup. And if Arthur Smith leaves after a year, then you just find the next guy who's not going to make it through the NFL cycle with a play calling job and bring him in. And you have the offensive continuity with Ryan Day. I do think this is instructive. I think moving forward, maybe have run game in mind more for Ryan Day and offensive coordinators, because he views himself as the guy who brings the passing game to the table, which is true. And then it would be the same thing on defense. You search for some scheme continuity, but honestly, a lot of these guys with these extensive NFL resumes have coached it all, have coached in every system imaginable, and can sort of form their scheme around that. I think Matt Patricia is doing that at Ohio State. He carried some stuff over from Jim Knowles that maybe he wouldn't have otherwise, and it worked great. So no, I'm no longer nervous about that. As long as you have the continuity at the top with Ryan Day, I think that's the sort of what and the idea of Ohio State is what sells the players. And then there's always going to be people with the NFL ties that Ryan Day covets, I think, available to hire for your coordinator positions.
So now we're also being realistic here. We're not blowing smoke on stuff. I do think that I understand this idea. I like this idea of a coordinator who doesn't have to coach a position group. They got to that point in 2018 with Greg Schiano, where that was the first time that that was when they went from 9 assistants to 10 assistants. They hired Alex Grinch. I think people thought Schiano was leaving, but then he didn't. And then he stayed, and he didn't really have a group. And I think Schiano that year schemed himself into oblivion. And that was the one where they decided they had the linebackers. They got up on the defensive tackles and the defensive tackles gave the linebackers piggyback rides. Remember that? Yep. And that was how they played defense, and did not work very well. And I almost thought Greg Schiano was a guy who had been at every level of the sport, college head coach, NFL head coach, position coach, defensive coordinator, got in his own head because he didn't have enough to do. Right? Because he was used to having his hands on guys, and it was let me sit back and scheme it. And it's okay, you over schemed it, Greg. So I do think you have to be careful, and you don't want to lock yourself in a room and just pop out on game day and be I got a bunch of plays, everybody, let's go. So I do think that matters. I do think, and that's the thing that Matt Patricia showed the way on, and everybody saw it, everybody wrote about it, talked about it, the way Matt Patricia interacted with players while also bringing an NFL mindset and an NFL scheme to the Ohio State defense, but also building relationships. I do think Arthur Smith's going to have to make sure that he doesn't become a mad scientist, that if he doesn't have a group, he's got to still be out there. He's got to make sure he has a relationship with Julian Sand and Jeremiah Smith and Austin Sarabeld and Ian Moore and Bo Jackson and everybody else. So I'm not on alert for that, but I think it's important. But I think like this idea of this acumen, and we'll tell this story. We were standing there after Ohio State lost to Miami.
Oh, yeah.
And Ryan Day was standing outside the locker room, and he was just talking to Matt Patricia and talking to Matt Patricia and talking to Matt Patricia as equals, commiserating. They had just lost this devastating game to end their season. They shouldn't have lost that game. They did. But he was just standing outside the locker room talking to Matt Patricia. And a bunch of us were standing there watching Ryan Day talk to Matt Patricia. And what did we say? What were we talking about in that moment? He needs an offensive guy standing there next to him too. Now,
yeah.
Brian Hartline came over later, but like Brian Hartline was doing other things. It wasn't like Brian Hartline was kicked out of the group, right? But it's just different. Brian Hartline views Ryan Day as a mentor. Brian Hartline says, I want to be like Ryan Day. Matt Patricia doesn't say I want to be like Ryan Day. Matt Patricia is like, what up, Rye bro? I don't know what he calls him.
Probably not Rye bro, if I had to guess.
That's what Arthur Smith now is, right? And so it is wonderful. Yeah. What a wonderful thing for Ryan Day and Brian Hartline to have that relationship. Brian Hartline worked so hard and so effectively for Ryan Day. It is unbelievable how important Brian Hartline was to Ryan Day's success. It is unbelievable the things that Ryan Day showed Brian Hartline, right? How to run a team, how to run a program. But like in that moment, I think we saw something there. And just the way this season has gone, it was like, man, it's like, hey, look, it's the offense and the defense got bosses there commiserating. It's like, no, it shouldn't be that. It should be the head coach and his two lieutenants, right? It's Tony Soprano and Paulie Walnuts and the guy from the Bruce Springsteen band, right? It's like you got both guys. You got two capos. It's not that you're the boss and a capo, right? You're the boss, but you got to have like a right-hand man and a left-hand man, a defensive guy and an offensive guy. And it felt like in the moment you could like sort of feel that missing just because of the way the staff shook out. And it felt like that's what they need. And then they got the Steelers offensive coordinator, and that's what this is. That's what this is.
Who's Silvio and who's Dante?
I mean, like, hey, Ryan.
Or Paulie, sorry. Who's Silvio and who's Paulie?
You know, Matt Patricia, more of a Paulie Walnuts? Like, that's the first question I'm asking as soon as we get to this. But like, I think like as Ryan Day, as a coach, as a leader, as a guy running a gigantic program in a chaotic time, I think he needs two guys like that. I think he needs two guys like that to handle the ball. Yeah,
he knows that too. I think like a lot of things sort of came to a head ahead of the 2025 season that like I won't say like didn't permit that to happen, but I understand why it caused Ryan Day to like deviate course a little bit, right? Like he could have said like, you know what, like I get it. This might be what I have to do because Brian Hartline's on the rise, but I'm still going to go get my guy who can be the head coach of the offense. But he didn't do that, and like it almost worked. It didn't quite work, but it almost worked. Yep. But this will be the way of it. I think from now on. And I even think like, you know, the younger guys in Ohio State staff who might fancy themselves offensive coordinator someday might have to leave and come back if they want to do it, right? Like I don't know if you know, the next young guy on the staff's going to get that job under Ryan Day anymore. And that's okay too. Like I frankly probably shouldn't. But I think it's good. Like you almost had these people come in because Ohio State does have it has a really young offensive coaching staff. But also like, you know, some young guys on the defensive staff who are on the rise too. And it's like to have Patricia and now Arthur Smith like coach those guys too. I think that's a heck of a thing for Ohio State to have. So, you know, there's like an incubator effect that I think can happen here when you, if you're able to kind of cycle through the people that have these kinds of resumes. Like, you know, are you always going to be able to get a multi-time Super Bowl winning coordinator to coach your defense and a former NFL head coach to coach your offense? Maybe not, but there are the NFL churns out a lot of people, so maybe you will. And I totally get like where Ryan Day's coming from with wanting that profile on either side of the ball so that he can, you know, be the CEO type that he needs to be from January until the following December, and then, you know, can get a little more nitty gritty with the ball in the playoff like he did in 2024. But he needs that buffer that he didn't have on the offensive side in 2025, and Arthur Smith should give that to him.
It is really quite a thing, even when they're not all young guys, and it's like ambition is wonderful, but like there have been a lot of guys, again, like Chris Ash, when he got here under Urban Meyer, was like very upfront about how he wanted to be a head coach, right? The first guy that Ryan Day hired when he got hired as the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes is now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Jeff Hafley, right? Like there are guys. And so it's also part of it, and that's wonderful, but it's also, and I'm not going to say it's like split focus or whatever, because like you have to be true to yourself. You're there to do well for your employer and your players and your team, but you're also trying to move up in the business. But like Arthur Smith and Matt Patricia have already been there. And it doesn't mean they don't ever want to go back, but like Arthur Smith's not sitting there being like, oh man, I hope our offense better be ranked number 1 so I can be a head coach. It's like, I've already been a head coach. Right. So like you're like trying to restart something, but you're not trying to like climb you've been to the mountain. Now you fell down a little bit, but you're trying to but like sometimes when it's like, oh man, like you're climbing up, it's like, man, like we're trying to win a game here. And like this guy's trying to make sure he gets his next job. Right. So, I mean, like that's the way it works. And that's wonderful. But I do think there's something can be said for bringing in guys like this, not who are at the end of the rope. This is not catch a falling coach. Arthur Smith's 43. This isn't Bill Belichick. So like this is a guy who's like still in the midst of his career, but has already kind of been there.
He's only been an offensive coordinator for 4 years. If you like, he called the plays as head coach for the 3 that he was at the Falcons, but he was OC for 2 years in Tennessee, and then he was OC for 2 years in Pittsburgh on either side of being a head coach.
Like he was so good as an offensive coordinator that he got hired in 2 years after doing it. Like he was so
that offense in 2020 was cooking in Tennessee when they had Tannehill and AJ Brown and who was the guy, Corey Davis from Western Michigan, and obviously Derrick Henry and Jonnu Smith. Like they were doing some stuff that I think, like, if you want to get excited about the hire, like go watch the 2020 Tennessee Titans offense. And frankly, it's just like, you know, I guess this could be taken like in a negative way, but like when Arthur Smith has had good players, his offense has been really good. I guess what he's going to have at Ohio State, good players. He's not working with a 48-year-old quarterback like he was in Pittsburgh, or Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder like he was in Atlanta. Like he's going to have premier athletes at his disposal, and when he's had that, his offenses have been excellent.
And you know who I'm sure Ryan Day called? And if this guy's like, don't hire this guy, he might not have hired him, but I would imagine got the stamp of approval.
Will Howard?
Mike Vrabel.
Mike
Vrabel, who was the head coach when Arthur Smith was the coordinator at Tennessee.
Yes.
And is as loyal of a Buckeye as there is. If Ryan Day's like, hey, man, like you were this guy's boss. What's the deal with this guy? Mike Vrabel wants to see Ohio State succeed. I think Mike Vrabel in my day, he doesn't, if he shot him, I mean, if he was like, I'm just telling you, man, I don't know. I don't think it would work. Then I'm not sure Arthur Smith would be here. And I know Mike Vrabel is getting ready to play in the AFC Championship game, but I bet you takes that call when it's from the Ohio State head coach and it's about the Buckeyes. He's got 11 minutes in his car to talk about Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that they really were going to stick with an internal hire? Like as this went along there, I think it was our guy Sam in the chat the other day was like, hey, if it was going to be like an internal promotion to OC, wouldn't they have done it by now? Which I was sort of thinking the whole time. It's like, well, if you're just going to say, well, whatever, we're not hiring somebody, then you already would have announced it. I assumed they'd land here, and I would have been shocked if they didn't. If it would have been like, no, like that Ryan Day would have been like, no, I'm just going to call it. I'll call it myself. We'll have 2 co-OCs, but I'll be the play caller. We'll get the next guy ready, whoever it is. I think that would have been potentially very iffy. Did you think it was a real possibility?
Very, very small percentage. Like, I guess I would say non-zero, but like when I did my list, I listed Ryan Day and Keenan Bailey and Tyler Bowen and Billy Fessler, just to like cover my own butt, I guess, when I was going through it, because I really wanted the person who was going to be the next OC to be on that list. And I'm still mad that they're not. 35 names, man. It's bad that what this guy wasn't on there. But no, I don't.
Gainfully employed by a playoff team at the time that you made the list.
He was. I'm going to go back and retroactively add his name to it, so no one will be.
Yeah, it's the internet. Nobody knows.
Yeah. No, I just think like too much was gained in 2024 by Ryan Day going down the path that he did. That I just assumed he would go back to that. Yeah. So I guess there's a chance that, like, just like really no one kind of fell through the NFL cycle that was appealing. That like if it came down to like Ryan Day calling plays or Greg Roman calling plays, is Ryan Day going to call plays, or is he going to give it to the Harbaugh guy? Maybe that's what leads to Ryan Day calling plays.
Yeah.
But like I think like he would have to exhaust almost every option of person who's called plays in the NFL before he got to that point.
And so when I was making my list of these 24 people, I was noting throughout it, there were either 5 or 6 that were on your original list. And I was like Landis was on this. There were 6. And I got to tell you, man, that like as I really started to get into this, Doug Peterson was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Peterson was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I think that could have been one. I thought maybe it would have ended up being Press Taylor.
So explain Press Taylor, which like I didn't realize it until you put it in your article, but there was some stuff there that like really made me think that was possible too.
Yeah, so Press Taylor, I think, is in Chicago right now, right? But was Doug Peterson's offensive coordinator with the Jaguars, was in Philly with Peterson prior to that. But back in the day when Ryan Day was in the NFL, Press was like a QC guy when Day was coaching the quarterbacks under Chip Kelly. So like, and I think Press Taylor's name might have came up when the Ryan Day was doing when he hired Bill O'Brien, I think.
Okay.
So that was like, it was like, I didn't pull that one out of left field. That was like, I knew that connection existed, but I thought maybe, I'm actually unsure if he's ever called plays in the NFL because he's always been under an offensive play calling head coach.
I had him on I think he did. But anyway, yes, he definitely, right. But he's the passing game. He has a job. He has a job. He's the passing game coordinator in Chicago. So he's not Ben Johnson, the head coach, calls the plays there. So you would have had to pull him out of something, right? Yes. That it's like he would have left an NFL paycheck to come to Ohio State.
The other connection there is like with Ryan Day and Ben Johnson work together at Boston College. I have no idea if they're friends, but they worked together for a year at Boston College.
Yeah. You also know I like Matt Nagy when I was starting to really get on the Matt Nagy train.
Because he played for Delaware.
Former Columbus Destroyers quarterback in the Arena Football League. And I was like, I bet you this guy loves Columbus. I bet Matt Nagy loves Columbus. I think if the announcement today was whatever, any of the existing offensive coaches have been promoted to co-offensive coordinator, but Ryan Day is going to call the plays, how would you be feeling on behalf of Ohio State fans, and how would you be thinking about this program today?
Borderline disastrous. Yeah. Like, and it's not Ryan Day, got this job because he's a really good play caller. I think it's difficult to wear that hat anymore when you're a head coach in college football. And I don't think that would position Ohio State to be the best version of itself.
And I would have thought like, okay, something like it worked doing this one thing in 2024. You tried something different 2025. Like it didn't go exactly as you wanted it to because you didn't win the national title. And then you like reverted to your old ways. Well, let's go back to 2019 when I was calling the plays. Just like even that decision-making, the actual result of Ryan Day now is calling the plays and he has a million other things to do. But the process that would have led him to that point, I would have worried about. Instead of acknowledging what worked and looking forward, he felt like he got bitten and is going back to what's comfortable, which is I know that I trust myself with that play sheet. So anyway, I think this is a win across the board for Ohio State fans. And again, just think of if you don't like this, just again, like who is it that you would have wanted, and is that a realistic person to get? And if you have somebody that you think is a great play caller at a lower level that certainly would have taken the Ohio State job, and you would rather go that younger, innovative, on the way up, like I get it. That's a reasonable answer. But if you don't like it because you thought the Steelers offense wasn't very good this year, like I don't think that's the way to look at it, right? That's sort of not, because this guy's been successful. And this guy was still in the mix. This guy had not been put out to pasture by the NFL by any stretch of the imagination. And that doesn't mean that he's going to be the best offensive coordinator in college football, but it means that Ohio State hired a guy who was still talking NFL teams, and there are not a ton of college teams that could do that. I was saying like 10, 12, 15. It might be 2. It might be 3. I don't even know. Who else could be in this situation and be like, oh yeah, he only talked to the Eagles and the Titans, and then he went to LSU, and then he went to Texas, and then he went to Michigan, or he went to Oregon. Oregon lost their offensive coordinator and promoted a guy from within.
I like the teams that I think would seek out this profile. Are Ohio State, Georgia. I think Michigan under Harbaugh would have. That might be it, because the other part is like wanting it is one thing, being able to attract that coach is another, right? So, yeah, probably those 3 teams.
Okay. All right. You already wrote about this at
yes.
BillandDougOSU.substack.com. I have a great story that I'm going to shove down the garbage disposal as soon as the show is over.
I think there might be a way. I thought the way that you arrived at sort of that group of coaches was interesting. There might be a way for you to repackage that I
can save it
to color this hire a little differently. Yeah,
I really did think. I thought the guy was in that list of 24. I really did think that made sense, right? That it's like someone who's called plays in the NFL, and that's not. Again, you had a bunch of guys who were on my list, were on your list, right? So like that's the thing. Like we're thinking along those lines, and then they got a guy who had other options. I think he had other options, and he chose Ohio State, or Ohio State was able to woo him. So we'll continue to talk about this. We'll continue to write about this. BillandDougOSU.substack.com. We have a show planned for our Substack subscribers on Sunday. We call it the Sunday Sound Off. We take questions from them. We gather them all up. We do some Q&A. We do that only for our subscribers. So if you subscribe to us on Substack, you get that written content. You get 2 extra shows, 1 or 2 extra shows a week. It's probably in the off season. It'll be like 6 extra shows a month, I would guess, 6 or 7. Probably won't have 2 shows every week, but at least 1 show for subscribers every week. And then we're going to continue to do a bunch of shows weekly here on this YouTube feed and here on this podcast channel. So if you're listening, if you're watching right now, we're grateful for it. Arthur Smith, new offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Thanks to you guys for hanging out. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was the Bill and Doug Show.